Welcome to Pub Sports Radio's NFL Futures Show. Today we are breaking down the NFC East. And we start with the favorites, your Dallas Cowboys. America's team last year, 6-10. They have the 7th easiest schedule in the league based on opposition forecasted wins. To make the playoffs, -150. To miss, +110. Regular season wins at 9.5. The under is juiced to -140. The over at +110. To win the division, +110. To win the conference, +1,300. To win the Super Bowl, +2,800. And Mike McCarthy, in his second year at the helm, a coach that I do not believe in. Offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, his third year in charge, and defensive coordinator Dan Quinn. A fall from grace with the Falcons, but we remember his great work as defensive coordinator with the Seahawks. Key acquisitions: Keanu Neal, linebacker from the Falcons, and we know Dan Quinn wanted him, so he's going to play a big role. Micah Parsons, round 1, number 12 overall by Penn State, very important pickup. Kelvin Joseph, round 2, number 44 out of Kentucky, expected to play opposite Trayvon Diggs. They lose Andy Dalton to the Bears. Who cares? They lose a woozy cornerback to the Bengals. Never reached the expectations that were expected of him. Aldon Smith, it's good to get him out of the city. I'm sure just the community is taking a big breath of relief here. Xavier Woods, safety, 3-year starter, gone to the Vikings, and Cameron Irving, offensive tackle, gone to the Panthers. Let's go. Dak Prescott's injury and an atrocious defense completely sunk any hopes Cowboy fans had last year. In the 4 games Dak played, he looked excellent. They put up 509.5 yards of offense per game. They averaged 31.5 points. He was leading the league in passing yards when he was lost for the season. On March 8th, they signed Prescott to a 4-year, $160 million contract so he can relax knowing that he's got a spot here for the future. He got hurt. He underwent immediate surgery October 11th, compound fracture, dislocation of his right ankle. He needed a second surgery in December to strengthen the ankle. Their offensive line had injuries all over the place. Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, La'el Collins missed a combined 36 games. The Cowboys are counting on all 3 of those offensive linemen to come back to health. They're counting on Dak Prescott to come back to health. They're counting on a lot here. If that all happens, they will be a very tough team, and they will again have one of the best offensive lines in the league. Zeke didn't have to dominate in those first 4 games because they had a multitude of weapons. He had 6 touchdowns. He was averaging 100 yards from scrimmage per game. He goes down, and so did Zeke's numbers. Dak goes down, and so did Zeke's numbers. 2 touchdowns is all Zeke had over the last 11 games when they needed them so desperately. And there were rumblings that maybe he wasn't even the best running back on the team. There were times when Tony Pollard looked pretty good. He ended with the worst statistical season of his career, 4 yards per carry, 65.3 rush yards per game. CeeDee Lamb had instant chemistry with Dak. That looked like a steal at 17th overall. Amari Cooper is coming back from ankle surgery in January. It is unclear how strong he's going to be to start the year. Dalton Schultz stepped in after Blake Jarwin's ACL tear. He finished with 63 receptions, 615 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He looked very good. And now on the defensive side of things, Dan Quinn comes in, and 14 newcomers come with him to help this defense. They did experiment with the 3-4 in 2020. It did not look good ever. Dan Quinn comes in. They're going back to the Tampa 2. They paid DeMarcus Lawrence a lot of money, $105 million 5-year contract in 2019. He has not given them enough. He better step up here. They need Randy Gregory to stay out of trouble. That's a hope. Defensive tackle Tristan Hill was an important piece last year. He looks to continue that here. Leighton Vander Esch is incredible when he's healthy and in the lineup, but you can't count on him. We know he had the neck injuries in college, and that's why they drafted Micah Parsons. Trayvon Diggs, second-round choice in 2020, has the skills to be a shutdown corner, and they used another second-round choice on Kelvin Joseph, who will compete with veteran Anthony Brown for the starting job opposite Diggs. A whole bunch of what-ifs. For the Dallas Cowboys. But Bono, is this a vulnerable favorite in the NFC East?
They need to prove it to me before I trust them. That's all I'll say about the Dallas Cowboys. That with where they're at coming into this year, I did bet them under 9.5, and this was a recently added season win totals bet, and it revolves around the Dak Prescott situation. This is the black cloud that continues to hang around Dallas. We don't know how healthy he is. He hasn't taken a snap in preseason. He's barely throwing the football in practice. And usually he's just doing individual stuff by himself. He hasn't been doing much team drills, team activities here in Dallas training camp. That's a problem. We don't know if he's going to be ready for week 1. And to be honest with you, even if he does play week 1, which is still up in the air, can he get through a full season? Because they keep saying he's fine, he's going to be all right. And yet day after day, week after week passes by. And it seems like, there's a little setback. There's a little bit of a roadblock in the road to recovery here for Dak Prescott. And that concerns me a lot because regardless of what Dallas is like on both sides of the ball, with no Dak Prescott to be a quarterback this year consistently for 17 regular season games, this team isn't going anywhere. It's simple as that. They're not going anywhere with Cooper Rush. They're not going anywhere with Garrett Gilbert. And they're certainly not going anywhere with Ben DiNucci if you saw him play that Sunday night game last year. Dallas has issues if Dak Prescott's not right. And we don't know for sure if he's going to be right. And even if he is right, because we don't want to play the hypothetical game. That's what can get you in trouble, especially when you're betting futures. You just can't bet based on hypotheticals or what ifs or maybes. I'm actually making this bet assuming we're going to get Dak for most of the season. And I still like Dallas under 9.5 wins, even if Dak plays. The offensive line is good when they're healthy, but look, they've all had injuries. You've had issues with Tyron Smith staying healthy. Zach Martin and La'el Collins, they had injury issues last year. They're very good on the right side of that line, but I don't know if you can trust them to be on the field all year. That's a concern. Like when they're all healthy, they're good. But that offensive line is also, they're all getting a little bit older, especially Zach Martin and Tyron Smith. So can you really count on that offensive line to be there and be fully healthy? We are hearing good things about Elliott. I don't deny that. He's off a terrible year. Production went way down. Now the O-line was banged up. That's part of the problem, but he put on the pounds prior to last year. Zeke Elliott, he was way overweight, out of shape. He treated the football like a hand grenade, fumbling it all over the place. He should be a motivated running back this year, especially when you're right. Tony Pollard, took a lot of his reps and a lot of his snaps and carries away from him last year. The one thing I like about Dallas is the receiving corps. It's hard not to like it. Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. It's a really good trio. But again, if you've got O-line concerns and you don't know how healthy Dak's going to be all year, specifically starting from week 1, you take advantage of all those weapons. And the defensive side of the football, they were embarrassing. Let's be honest. They were embarrassing on defense last year. They couldn't stop the run. They were torched in the secondary. And now is the question going to be, do they go from brutal to mediocre? Or do they go from brutal to good? I like the Dan Quinn hire as DC. He was a good DC under Pete Carroll in Seattle. And some guys, a lot of coaches, end up being better coordinators, even when it doesn't work out well as a head coach. And that was the case for Quinn. Maybe it'll be the case here. They got a lot of personnel issues still. I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence, they paid him all that money. He was a ghost last year. It was awful to see the drop of production for him. Randy Gregory, he came on down the stretch, but he's got to be better for a full year. You're going to need a pass rush because there wasn't one last year. The secondary's got the linebacking core. I like the Parsons draft pick. I don't mind that he had some issues off the field. The player that you're going to get in him, I think, was worth the risk. In terms of, the off-field issues, because you can't trust Leighton Vander Esch with those neck injuries. And even when he was on the field last year, I think his play has declined significantly. There were times he was beaten constantly over the middle of the field. So I don't mind that Van Der Esch, that they're looking for a replacement for him. And even Jalen Smith, the other linebacker that got all kinds of accolades a couple years ago, he hasn't played as well either the last year or so for the Cowboys. That's why they invested in Micah Parsons in that first-round pick as a linebacker. So they got questions there. The secondary, not very good, in my opinion. They got questions. They're going to have a lot of youth, a lot of inexperience. They better hope Calvin Joseph's ready to play well. They better hope Trayvon Diggs is ready to take a step up as a rookie, because I thought he was average at best last year for them. They do lose Chidobe Awuzie, who I thought was actually decent last year. Not great, but at least he had some experience. So you're going to have to hope these youngsters, Joseph, Diggs, we're going to see if Anthony Brown can be more consistent. That's all big ifs, in my opinion. They bring in Keanu Neal to shore up the safety position, but here's the problem with Keanu Neal. And this is sometimes what happens when coaches just say, you know what, I know the guy, I love the guy, he played hard for me in Atlanta, let's bring him here to Dallas. Maybe Dan Quinn is the one that went to McCarthy and said, bring in Keanu Neal. Here's the problem. Keanu Neal was great before this slew of injuries he had. When he came back from his most recent injury in Atlanta, he was not the same player. He was not a good player at all, in fact, Keanu Neal, after the injury last year. And he's had an extremely injury-prone career now. It looks like all these injuries that he's been besieged with have actually taken away a lot of his ability. It's sad to say that, but I've got doubts whether Keanu Neal is going to be that same impact player for Dallas that he was pre-injuries with the Atlanta Falcons. That's a big concern for me. They already have Neville Gallimore, one of the guys they're counting on at defensive tackle, injured in the preseason. So, and we haven't even gotten to the schedule yet. Guess who you got to play? You got to play the NFC and the AFC West. To me, the top two divisions in the NFL this year, the two toughest divisions. Have fun with that. They better hope they win some damn divisional games, because they could get swept by the AFC West. They could get swept by the NFC West, this Dallas team, in my opinion. Now, with McCarthy, with holes all over the roster, with Dak Prescott, not a sure thing at all to make it through a full season or even be healthy enough to play week 1 against Tampa Bay. I like under 9.5. There's no way I'm trusting this team to be a double-digit win football team.
The Dallas Cowboys, so many questions. If they don't win, if they don't hit their over, then is the next team that we're about to break down your NFC East champion, the Washington football team. 2020 record, 7-9. The schedule makers didn't help them. The 6th hardest schedule in the league based on opposition forecasted wins. To make the playoffs, they're plus 150. To miss the playoffs, minus 200. The regular season win total is sitting at 8.5. That's slightly juiced to the over right now at Bet365 at minus 120. The under at minus 110. To win the division, plus 260. Nice return on investment if you want it. To win the conference, 22-1. To win the Super Bowl, 50-1. Ron Rivera, year 2. Scott Turner, Jack Del Rio, year 2 for offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. Key acquisitions, Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I can't wait. I just love watching Fitzpatrick out there. But for a team with what looks like such a strong defense, there's going to be some anxious moments with Fitzy. Curtis Samuel brought over from the Panthers. Now, we know he's dealing with a groin injury. He had COVID. He got over COVID. They hope he'll be ready for week 1, and he reunites with Scott Turner. 3 years, $34.5 million. Adam Humphries comes over from the Titans. Can he get over his concussion issues? If he can, he'll be a really nice weapon over the middle. William Jackson, cornerback from the Bengals. And Jamin Davis. There you go. Jamin Davis, who linebacker, number 19th overall from Kentucky, had a huge junior season last year. Diami Brown comes in, a weapon, a deep threat. And now Fitzy has weapons with this Washington Football Club. Key losses, Ronald Darby. It's okay. I mean, if you like William Jackson with what he did from Cincinnati, he'll replace Darby. Alex Smith retired. This 2020 Washington football season was wild. I mean, it was, from a fan perspective, just a roller coaster ride. You have Rivera and his cancer treatments. You have a 5-game losing streak early, a 4-game win streak late. You have 4 different quarterbacks and an NFC East title. wild. Fitzy gets this other shot. We talked about Curtis Samuel, Humphreys, Diami Brown. A lot of playmakers. They have one legitimate deep threat for sure, and that's Terry McLaurin. And now, after watching just one deep threat for this football team, they have a few. They have a few. Curtis Samuel coming off 1,051 total yards, 5 TDs. They're hoping he'll be ready to go. Their offensive line was good last year, led by Brandon Scherf and tackle Morgan Moses on the right side. 2020 third-round pick running back Antonio Gibson was a revelation. If not for that toe injury costing him the last 2 games, he goes for 200 carries. He goes for 1,000 rush yards. Jack Del Rio did some nice work with this defense. There's no doubt about it. And this year, their defense could be nasty. They have first-round picks almost everywhere. Number 2 overall pick, Chase Young. They got Montez Sweat, who had 9 sacks in 2020. Darren Payne, Jonathan Allen up the middle. Ryan Kerrigan left to go to the Eagles, but Matthew Ioannidis should be ready to go. I mean, he only played 3 games last year. If he can get over the biceps injury, he will be rolling. They addressed their linebacker need in a big way. They're going to need safety, and that's what Jamin Davis. They're going to need safety Landon Collins to be back at full strength for the boost that this defense needs. But they could be dangerous. But, Bono, I ask you, are these your NFC East champions?
I think they are. I want to make one correction about Dallas. They play the NFC South. They don't play the NFC West. I want to make that correction. So AFC West, NFC. So we want to put out good info, accurate info, not bad. So I wanted to make sure we get that right. But they do play Arizona and New England as 2 extra games. Dallas, 2 difficult ones. So I still like them under 9.5. Doesn't change my opinion there. As far as Washington goes, I bet this team already to win the division. I think they are your NFC East champs this year. I think they're the best of the bunch. They're best of a mediocre lot. That's what I see from the Washington football team coming into 2021. And I think we're going to see a team here that, look, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I've made the jokes, Shitspatrick and Pickpatrick and all these funny names to call him when he screws up and he throws an interception. And look, you're going to live with that if you're Washington. He's going to do that a few times this year too. He's going to chuck the ball into double coverage when he shouldn't and get picked off. But you know what he's also going to do? He's going to make plays for you. He's going to be a determined competitor, a fierce competitor, and he is that. You can't take that away from him. And it seems like as he's gotten older, he's actually gotten a little bit better. I'm not saying he's a great quarterback, but it actually seems, Jimmy, as he's aged, he's gotten better. Like, I know he's in his late 30s now, but I actually think, look, when you look at the Washington situation last year, quarterback-wise, Haskins was awful. Kyle Allen was okay, but nothing great, and then he got hurt. Alex Smith, amazing story. Don't get me wrong, that leg injury, we thought he'd never play again. We thought he'd even struggle maybe even to walk properly again when he suffered that injury. The fact he got back out on the field and played was a magnificent achievement. But, look, he was compromised. He could barely move out there. He struggled mightily. Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to be a better option for Washington at quarterback than any of those guys. Haskins, Allen, and, of course, Alex Smith in his compromised state. So to me, it's fine with him at quarterback. Heineke, if Fitzpatrick struggles, you can put Heineke in there, who was very good. Remember, he almost engineered an upset against Tampa Bay. We're maybe not talking about Tampa Bay winning the Super Bowl if a few plays here and there go a different direction in the wild card against Washington. So I think they're okay at quarterback. They had to address the receiving core because Terry McLaurin was the guy that got all the attention, and they did that. Curtis Samuel's a nice add, I think, for the Washington football team in terms of the receiving core. They're going to hope that, Logan Thomas became an impact tight end. That's a good sign, guy that transitioned from being a quarterback to a tight end. It was good to see him make that move, and he's paid dividends for Washington making that move. He's been a good tight end. You're going to see if there's some other guys that can step up at receiver beyond McLaurin and Samuel. Cam Sims, I think, has got some potential, but I don't mind the receiving core. Depth is a concern. You lose McLaurin and you lose Samuel, you're in some trouble. But if they stay healthy, the receiving core is good enough. The O-line was the problem last year. They're going to have 2 new tackles this year. We'll see how they go in terms of Charles Leno and Cornelius Lucas. It's going to be interesting to see how they fit. That offensive line certainly has to improve. But at least with Fitzpatrick, he's a guy that's mobile. He doesn't mind running with the football when he can. So that's going to help the O-line. That even though there's questions there, it is definitely a help that Fitzpatrick can move around in the pocket a little bit. As far as the interior of the O-line, I like Brandon Scherf as a guard for sure. The center, I think it's gotten better and better as well. So overall, I think this group is improving. Eric Flowers, that's the concern. We've talked about this guy millions of times. It's just not been a good NFL career for him so far. We'll see if he can short things up. But the O-line, better, maybe not great yet, the O-line, but I think a little bit better than last year. Defense, the defensive line is just outstanding. What else can you say? They've got a group that can just get after it up front. Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Chase Young, Montez Sweat, go on and on. The defense in the front seven, Jimmy, it's absolutely loaded for Washington. One of the best defensive lines, in my opinion, in the NFL this year. I don't think it's a stretch to say that. The question is, can the rest of the group be good? Ryan Kerrigan's gone. Linebacking core last year at times kind of struggled. Going to have to hope that the first-round pick on Jamin Davis works out for you. John Bostic, still a solid linebacker as well, but still some depth issues there. As far as the secondary goes, it's going to be interesting to see. I think they'll be better there with Landon Collins back. Missed lots of last year due to injury. That's probably going to help this secondary out quite a bit. William Jackson, bringing him in, a terrific addition to the secondary. You don't have to worry then as much about some of the other guys. Like Kendall Fuller's good, but that pushes Ronald Darby back. And I think the less you see of Ronald Darby, the better. Now you have William Jackson, and you should have a healthy, Kendall Fuller this year as well. So I think the secondary looks solid enough. And look, they're not even going to have to be great because they're not going to have to face a ton of situations where the quarterback is likely going to have all the time in the world, the opposing quarterback, to throw it. Not with that defensive line. So I think that'll help the secondary in pass coverage as well. Just a lot to like. I know the schedule is not easy. That's why in terms of the win total, Jimmy, I'm lukewarm on it. I lean to the over because I like the team Washington, so I lean over 8.5, but I do admit the schedule is tough. I think the better bet for Washington is the division future than the win total, because I think these division teams, these NFC East teams, are going to beat the hell out of each other. They're going to cannibalize each other. There's not one that's markedly better than the other. So you could have an 8 or 9 win team win the division this year. I don't think that's out of the question with just how mediocre the division is top to bottom. So rather than the win total over 8.5, I'd rather go Washington just to win the division plus 260. I think that's the better bet here in this. I'm not ready to trust them, obviously, to win the NFC or the Super Bowl. I think they get in the playoffs by default winning this division, but I think they're probably not going to go far yet in the playoffs. Maybe you give them a chance to win one game, but I think that's probably the ceiling for Washington this year. I think the best bet on the board for them, though, is Washington to win the NFC East at plus 260.
Does make a lot of sense. It is a nice number. Can they win the division with 8 wins?
It depends on how bad the rest of the division is. But the bottom line is, to me, it's not going to require necessarily 10-plus wins to win this division. That is because I just think it's going to be back and forth, cannibalize each other. They've all got to face relatively difficult schedules, every team in this division, some more than others in terms of degree of difficulty. But I think at the end of the day, they're going to be probably in that 9-win range, and I'd lean over 8.5. I wouldn't say don't bet that. I just think the plus 260 value than 8.5 over minus 120 is a better positive expectation bet for this team, especially if you like them like I do.
We move on to the Philadelphia Eagles. 2020 record 4-11-1. They have the 10th easiest schedule in the league based on opposition forecasted wins. To make the playoffs, plus 260. To miss the playoffs, minus 350. Regular season win total is at 6.5. Heavily juiced to the over at minus 160. The under at plus 130. To win the division, plus 450. To win the conference, 25-1. And to win the Super Bowl, 66-1. It is Nick Sirianni's first year as head coach of this Eagles squad. Shane Steichen, first year as offensive coordinator with his West Coast offense. And Jonathan Gannon, first year as defensive coordinator using the 4-3 scheme. They pick up Devonta Smith in the draft, round 1, number 10 overall from Alabama. And he has a history with their starting quarterback this year, Jalen Hurts. So a very interesting draft, a big wide receiver. Well, very fast. I should say big because he's diminutive, but a very fast and a big draft pick is what I should say. Kerryon Joseph, running back from the Lions. Joe Flacco, quarterback from the Jets. Then key losses, Carson Wentz to the Colts, Deshaun Jackson to the Rams, Alshon Jeffrey to nobody. He's unsigned right now. And Jalen Mills gone to the Patriots. The Eagles have fallen off in a huge way since their 2018 Super Bowl victory, and now come Nick Sirianni and quarterback Jalen Hurts to right the ship. Can they right the ship? We know Hurts is very mobile, but he completed just 52% of his passes. Like, I can understand wanting to move on from Wentz and this being the easiest way possible, but I think that the jury's still out on whether Hurts can do this. Shane Steichen comes to Philly after doing incredible work with Justin Herbert, offensive rookie of the year last season in Los Angeles. Jalen Reagor, who's battled injuries and not getting help from a quarterback, is hopefully going to be a big part of this puzzle. Travis Fulgham, Philly's leading receiver in 2020, returns. So does Greg Ward. The Colts offensive, so the head coach here for the Eagles was the Colts offensive coordinator. So he was there through Andrew Luck to Jacoby Brissett to Phillip Rivers. He used 12 personnel throughout his stay as an offensive coordinator for the Colts, which means Goddard and Ertz are going to get a lot of run here. And we know that Goddard has supplanted Ertz as the number one tight end. And there's a lot of talk that Ertz could be moved any day. Could be moved before the season started. Miles Sanders, 867 yards, 5.3 per carry. Boston Scott, change of pace, running back. Last year, their offensive line was ravaged by injuries. They used an NFL record 14 different starting combinations in 16 games. Hopefully, they won't have to go through that. Jason Kelce remains the key. They're hoping Lane Johnson can come back from all the ankle injuries that he had. And Jonathan Gannon, a Mike Zimmer disciple, comes in to run the defense. Their general manager, Howie Roseman, certainly helped them. Signed free safety Anthony Harris, and then 6 of their draft picks on defense. Fletcher Cox coming off the 6th consecutive Pro Bowl season. Brandon Graham, 8 sacks in 3 of the past 4 years. Alex Singleton was spectacular last year, beyond all expectations that anyone had for him. A breakout linebacker. They signed Darius Slay before last season, expecting him to be the old Darius Slay that we remember from the Lions. He was not. He looked terrible. Quarterbacks were able to complete throws 76.7% of the time against them. Safety Rodney McLeod returns for a 6th season in Philadelphia. They add Anthony Harris, who's coming off a big season. Big season over in Minnesota. A ton of question marks, and I don't trust Jalen Hurts. I don't trust him to be a superstar here. I still think there's too many issues with him through the air. Philadelphia Eagles, Babano, take it away.
Another team with tons of questions. What else is new? And it's hard to believe that in one division, I'm hard-pressed to bet any of these teams over the win total. And that's just the way it is. I mean, Washington's as close as I've come to liking a team over their win total. And Philly is one of those teams I'm not looking to bet them over their win total. This is going to be interesting because Carson Wentz was actually pretty good before last year, and it was obviously bad. Just terrible decision-making, just interception and bad decision, one after another. Red zone was brutal for him. And, yeah, a lot of it was on Wentz. But I think the Philly Eagles underestimated just how much those offensive line and wide receiver injuries really impacted Carson Wentz. Wentz deserves a good share of the blame. He had to be better. But it's almost like they pulled the plug on him after one really bad year. And I know injuries have been an issue for him. And I know there was some discontent with him and, of course, the former head coach, Doug Peterson. There's no question. But I don't know if they made the right move here to just bail on Carson Wentz and go to Jalen Hurts. Let's not forget, Jalen Hurts was thought of as the guy that's got the passing ability of a guy that's maybe drafted on the 2nd or 3rd day of the draft. And that's what he's got to show you, that he can be a consistent pocket passer. I applaud him for being a dual-threat quarterback that can move and he's got athleticism. I applaud his work ethic because they say he's working his tail off, this guy, since he's been a member of the Eagles. Another Philadelphia sports athlete could learn from that. Ben Simmons, maybe work on your craft and look to improve and better yourself instead of just thinking you're good. At least with Jalen Hurts, he's at least putting in the work, but at the same point in time, all the work and effort in the world is not always going to make you a better pocket passer. He has not had a game yet where he's thrown a 60+% completion rate. That bothers me. He's been sub 60% completion rate in every single NFL start. so far for the Eagles. So he's got to show an improvement in his downfield ability. And a lot of it was dink and dunk last year with him. A lot of it was him running the ball. He's got to try to stretch the field. Defenses are just going to take away the short to intermediate shit, if you're not going to be able to push the ball down the field. And he's got to show the ability to do that. And the question's out there for me, whether he can or not coming into this year. You mentioned the O-line. When they're healthy, they're good. Lane Johnson. But how many times do we wonder if he's going to play one week to the next? Jason Kelsey, the center. How many times do we have to wonder if he's going to play each and every time? Brandon Brooks, again, missed the entire year last year. They're great offensive linemen, but what are we going to get? Are we going to get 17 games with them on the football field this year? We don't know. But they're good when they're a whole, but they're obviously a shell of themselves when they're not. Because, the other guys, Isaac Suamalo is not a great player, in my opinion. They've got other guys that are a little bit weaker on that O-line. So that's going to be issues. The running back group, Miles Sanders showed you a little glimpse of something. Can Jordan Howard get something more in Philly than he showed in Chicago at times? So, and again, a lot of that's going to be whether the O-line stays healthy for the Eagles. So the offense is a question mark. The defense up front, I still like the defensive line when they've got everybody in place there. Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, they're still very good players. They bring in Ryan Kerrigan from the Washington, who's not quite the player he once was, but he's still an impact player. He can still do some things for you on the field. He can still, get pressures on the quarterback. He's going to provide a little bit of a veteran leadership type of deal for Philly's defense, which is going to help in my opinion. So I like that. They took Milton Williams in the draft. So the defensive line actually looks like it could be pretty good. The secondary, obviously, Darius Slay's got to be a whole lot better. You went out, you made the big move to bring him in. He's got to be better. He was just not good at all last year, especially what you expected from Darius Slay. And if he doesn't improve, they didn't do anything really to address, a lot of the other parts of the secondary. Zach McPherson, 4th-round pick. Yeah, he's not ready to start yet. Are you kidding me? Then you look at the safety position. Anthony Harris, nice addition from Minnesota, but last year was a bad year for him. Are you going to get Anthony Harris 2 years ago or Anthony Harris last year? Last year was not a good year for him. So the secondary is littered with holes, littered with question marks. And anytime they face a team, Jimmy, this year, where they're facing a good quarterback and a deep receiving core, they're going to get shredded, I think, because I just don't think much of this secondary right now until they prove me otherwise. So not only is Philly probably more of a bet against team for me, I would lean over the total if they're facing a team that can throw the football with a good, strong-armed quarterback and a lot of weapons at receiver. They're going to give up points and they're going to give up big plays. So if they face those vaunted passing attacks, they're going to get crushed. And you could go over the total. You could look at the team total over for the opposing team in those situations. But secondary looks weak. And look, you're talking about new coach, new schemes, completely new philosophy. It's hard to envision and hard to guarantee success in this particular 2021 season for Philadelphia.
Yes, I agree with that breakdown. A very interesting team to watch, and I can't wait. I have so many question marks about Jalen Hurts. We move on to the New York.
I'll say one last thing, Jimmy,
Sure,
about Philly. Alex Singleton. I'll give him credit. They got a player in him, and I'm not just saying that because I liked him in Calgary in the CFL. But that guy can play. His motor never stops. They got something there. And thank God, because the linebacking core needs him in the worst way to shore up a very weak and depth-shy group.
Next up, we have the New York Giants. 2020 record 6-10. They have the 8th hardest schedule in the league based on opposition forecasted wins to make the playoffs plus 220, to miss the playoffs minus 300. Regular season wins sitting at 6.5, juiced heavily to the over minus 160 and plus 130. So if you're thinking these numbers are very similar to the Eagles, they are. They're very similar to the Eagles. Everything is the same. Super Bowl conference division, regular season win totals. So 450 for the division. The difference is conference here for the Giants is plus 3,300. And then Super Bowl is plus 6,600. But to make the playoffs, the Giants are plus 220, where the Eagles are plus 260. And to miss the playoffs, the Eagles are minus 350, while the Giants are minus 300. So small differences. Joe Judge in year 2, Jason Garrett year 2, Patrick Graham year 2. They bring in Kenny Golladay, a number 1 receiver for them. Could be said the first number 1 receiver they've had since ODB. Kadarius Toney out of Florida, 20th overall. Very fast, talented wide receiver. Devontae Booker, they get the running back who will expected to be Barkley's backup. They get Adoree Jackson, cornerback from the Titans, and they pick up Ojulari, second round, 50th overall out of Georgia, an edge rusher there. They lose Dalvin Tomlinson, defensive tackle. They lose Golden Tate and Kevin Zeitler to Baltimore. This is a giant year for Daniel Jones. Can he be the guy? This is the year he has to prove that the Giants didn't make a mistake drafting him 6th overall in 2019. 22 interceptions, 29 fumbles in 27 career games. Ugly numbers. They bring in Kadarius Toney. They bring in Kenny Golladay. They add them to Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Evan Ingram. They bring in Kyle Rudolph, and now a healthy Saquon Barkley. They also signed John Ross III. Wow, that is a lot of talent. Will that talent be protected? Last year, Pro Football Focus ranked their offensive line 31st in the NFL. They get Nate Solder back from the COVID list. That's going to be a huge, huge deal. He opted out last year. 4th overall pick offensive tackle Andrew Thomas needs to progress. He did not look good last year. He did not look worthy of the 4th overall pick. And they signed Zach Fulton from the Texans to replace Zeitler. Defensive coordinator Patrick Graham did a really good job last year. Leonard Williams, 11.5 sacks. I mean, the pass rush was better than we expected. Now you have Ojulari, who will team up with them. Dexter Lawrence needs to show more this year. There are depth concerns in the front seven. The secondary built around star cornerback James Bradbury. The New York Giants, I can't wait to watch this team play this year. But Bono, what are your expectations?
So I think there's potential for the New York Giants. And again, this goes back into the hypotheticals, but everything I've seen is I shouldn't be trusting this team. That being said, there's potential, and I'm at minus 160. I'm not betting it, but I'm mildly leaning toward over 6.5 wins for the New York Giants. This is probably the team that I think next to Washington has the most upside in this division. I just think Washington's more proven upside than the New York Giants. Right? Year 3 for Daniel Jones. And the thing that concerns you, though, is his rookie year, 24 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Last year, 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. The touchdown numbers were way down. The interception numbers went way up. That's not a good sign when a quarterback's going from year 1 to year 2 and the numbers get much worse. Is it a sign that Jones isn't the guy? What happened? What caused that? Well, first of all, I've never been a big Jason Garrett fan. You know, I've never been that. And I think they could have made better decisions who they could bring in as an OC than him. And another thing is the receiving core was brutal last year for the New York Giants. I mean, there was very little out there for Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes in the receiving game. The one thing I'll say is that the Giants worked to improve the receiving core with what they did in the offseason. I like it a lot, actually. Kenny Golladay is a good receiver with the Lions. If he stays healthy, he'll be very good. John Ross has speed to burn. It didn't always pan out for him with the Bengals, but I think that can be a solid addition. Kyle Rudolph, a veteran tight end, is going to be a reliable option over the middle of the field now for Daniel Jones. So they really got some weapons, and one of the biggest weapons of all, they didn't have to acquire him. They're just going to get him back from injury, and of course, that's Saquon Barkley. And that's obviously going to be an immense help to Daniel Jones. And I think just having him in the backfield is going to make sure that he doesn't throw as many, contested footballs or make as many bad decisions. And also he's got to work on just, taking care of the football and just making sure that when you get hit, it doesn't pop out. That's been an issue for Daniel Jones. Someone just bumps into him or tackles him lightly and he can still fumble the football. He's got to improve ball security coming into this year. There's no question about that. But it all comes back to the O-line. I mean, this offense reminds me of the beautiful car you buy. The paint job looks great. The hydraulics are amazing. The sound system's great. It just looks beautiful. But what about the motor and the engine? It's not so good, and it doesn't run properly. That's the Giants' offense to me. It's got the toys. It's got the receivers now. It's got Saquon Barkley. It's got skill position weapons. But at the end of the day, the O-line's got question marks, and I'm not a big Jason Garrett fan calling the plays. So that's what I get concerned about with the Giants. And their offensive line, it has to improve. Simple as that. The left and right tackle spot was abysmal last year. Solder being back on the right side should help. Andrew Thomas, look, maybe this is just another Dave Gettleman special where he just flops and he whiffs on a draft pick. But he's got to be much better, Andrew Thomas. I mean, they expected a lot more from him as an offensive lineman, even in his rookie year, than he showed last year. So he's got to take that progression and step forward, no doubt. On defense, there's some hope on defense. I think when you look at it, Dexter Lawrence, along the defensive front, it's a guy they got from Clemson. I think he'll continue to get better. Leonard Williams had a great year last year. There's some things to like, with the defensive line. I think they'll be able to get some pressure, be decent as well, be improved at least against the run as well. The linebacker spot is pretty weak. I will say that. Blake Martinez is really good, but they don't have a whole lot that position outside of that. The secondary, that's probably going to be the best part of this defense, I think, this year. I think they'll be able to cover down the field. Bringing in Adoree Jackson. Now, look, he's always injured, or at least he was with Tennessee, but he's a talented cornerback. He's skilled, can cover down the field one-on-one. I like the addition. You just got to hope injuries don't plague him in the Big Apple like they plagued him in Music City with the Titans. So I don't mind taking the chance on him. It's a gamble because of the injuries, but Adoree Jackson's a talented player. I think it could work out well for him. James Bradbury, pretty solid as the other corner. Logan Ryan, I think, will help as well. They still got Jabril Peppers as well. They're very, very good at the safety spot. Xavier McKinney, looking at it last year, he had a very, very tough rookie year, but I think when he came back from injury, he played well, and he'll continue to improve this year. So the secondary looks good. Defensive line looks better. I do worry about linebacker. Again, any team that's weak at linebacker, Giants do look to be that way. Maybe you target tight ends of the opposing team whenever they play the Giants this year, player props over receiving yards, that kind of thing. Put a tight end from the other team in your lineup against the Giants this year. That makes sense to me. But the secondary looks solid. Defensive line looks improved. It's all going to come down to the O-line in terms of what they do offensively. I think they've got weapons, and if the O-line's even decent and Jones cuts down on the interceptions, they can make some plays. They've got Barkley. They've got a better receiving core. They got a good tight end now in Rudolph, who's been around and knows how to produce at this level. There's things to like about the Giants, but there's a lot of things that have to, and it comes back to that O-line. If the O-line's even just a little bit better, they could be a little bit of a team that maybe takes people by surprise. I want to buy into the Giants. I'm leaning toward over 6.5. I actually think ATS wise, look, they went 9-7 last year. They'll make some money for their backers this year, the Giants. I really believe that. And I think they could be a winning point spread team, say 9-8 or better ATS this year. It wouldn't surprise me to see this as a profitable ATS team. And if the offensive line does indeed improve with the other areas, there's some hope for the other areas of this football team as well, then they could challenge for this division. So in terms of the Giants behind Washington, they're the team that I think's got the most upside in this division.
I like that breakdown a lot. With all the question marks around the NFC East, I'm really excited to watch all these teams play. And I haven't said that.
It's a total crapshoot, and that's what's going to make it fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So then when we go to your best bet in a future situation, would you go to the Washington football team to win the division?
I'll go with that. I do like that one a lot. I like Dallas under 9.5 a lot as well, but let's go for the better price, right? And I do think they win this division. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, he goes to a new team. He's a downgrade in a lot of spots. He's actually an upgrade for this Washington team compared to Haskins and Allen and just a completely, physically compromised Alex Smith last year. He's an upgrade from all three of those guys. So Washington football team to win the NFC East. That'll be the best futures look on the board for me.
I love it. There is your NFC East breakdown. Catch us every Tuesday night throughout the season on our Opening Alliance show. That will be 8 p.m. Eastern live here on Pub Sports Radio. And every Sunday, 2 hours before kickoff, we'll have the NFL Pub Hub, where we will be breaking down each and every game, going over best bets and player props. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit the like and the subscribe button, please. And thank you so much for your support. On behalf of Babano, myself, and everybody at Pub Sports Radio, let's have ourselves a giant NFL season this year.